We talked a few times about this in the last couple of months. It's the Druze religious minority in Syria. Now, they have been in a portion of the country, Sweda. It's a province in the southern part, and it's been semi-autonomous. And while many Druze were initially open to working with the new government that stepped in following the toppling of the brutal Assad regime last year, the violence that broke out this past July has changed a lot of minds. And now a de facto military and government-like body has been set up in Sweda as some call for succession. They're afraid. In fact, they want to come in alignment with Israel. It's a very interesting dynamic there. So how do we sort through all this? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Ahmad Sharawi. He is a research analyst for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, whose focus is on the Middle East. Ahmad, thanks so much for joining us here on Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me.
Now, there's a lot to unpack in that introduction, but things are in trouble in Syria, and part of it, the Druze minority, which there's also a large Druze population in Israel, and they're in trouble. What do we see developing there as a way for them to have security and safety?
Sure. Just let me start off by saying that the Druze community in Sweda was attacked back in July by government forces and Arab Sunni Bedouin forces or tribesmen. What started as a localized clash became more of an attack that led to the death of more than 1,000. What we're seeing right now is more calls for independence and autonomy from the Druze in Sweda, because they've lost all the trust they had in the government in Damascus. They see that the government has failed to protect them against the onslaught, and so they feel that they're in danger being part of the state, and that's why they're calling for secession.
This is not new from a standpoint of Northeast Syria. You had Christians, Muslims, and other religious minorities forming a government up there a number of years ago. And so Syria is very fractured and probably works better as you have semi-autonomous governments, but they want to be totally extracted from the Syrian government. Is that the understanding?
So the Kurds in northeast Syria, the Syrian Democratic Forces is a military coalition that is a U.S. partner in counterterrorism against the Islamic State. And since 2015, since that body was formed, they've created some sort of autonomous body where they have local governance over 3 of Syria's provinces. Ever since the fall of the Assad regime, they've been in active negotiations with the government in Damascus about how they want to integrate. They're calling for a decentralized political system in which they can maintain their local governing authorities and structures, but still be part of the overall state. So that's not necessarily independence or separation, but they're seeing some sort of localized autonomy. Unfortunately, they agreed on a plan back in March. The implementation of the plan has been very slow. We saw a lot of tensions and problems arise over the past few months. All going back to some of the violent episodes that Syria has experienced over the past 10 months, be it the violence in the south against the Druze or the violence in the coast against the Alawites. And so the Kurds are asking for more, let's say, guarantees, constitutional guarantees from the Syrian government in order to agree to integrate. Until now, as I stated, things have been slow and tensions have been rising. We're seeing some clashes between Kurdish forces against the government forces. And there's a lot of indicators that this might escalate into a bigger conflict anytime soon.
So are we headed back to another civil war in Syria?
I wouldn't say that right now. Syria remains fractured. There's a lot of mistrust, or there's a lack of trust in the new government. Of course, the new government is run by Ahmad Sharawi, who was a former Al-Qaeda commander under the name Abu Muhammad al-Julani. And that's why a lot of these ethnic minorities are hesitant and reluctant to trusting the new government in Damascus. Adding to that is that he's seeking to centralize power. He is giving himself more constitutional rights. He's the one who selects the ministers, and he selects 1/3 of the Syrian parliament. And so there's a lot of these powerful groups in Syria are very hesitant and are very critical of the moves he's taking. In terms of moving on to another civil war, I think we're seeing smaller violent episodes. Now, of course, anything can trigger a wide-scale civil war, but Syria there's still a lot of instability in Syria. The economy is not doing well.
Ahmad, we just have about a minute left. So what is the way forward for Syria to bring stability to that region?
So I think one necessary step that the new president Ahmad Sharawi needs to take is to give other segments of the Syrian population a say in the political process. As I stated, he's seeking to centralize as much power as he can, and he's sidelining all other groups, and that's not a way of building a stable state. He's seeking international legitimacy and normalization from the U.S. and other European actors, and in order to get more sanctions relief and to get more investments and money inside the country. But he needs to work on the domestic political system. He needs to give minorities a voice. He needs to ensure their participation in the process in order for them to feel that they can live in a secure Syria where they're not in danger of any onslaught.
And he's got to do that quickly. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's a powder keg there. Ahmad, we're out of time. I want to thank you for joining us.